Yo guys, what's up? Like and subscribe. No, but in all seriousness, welcome to the Starkage podcast. This is your boy, Dr. Oatmeal. I'm with the one and only Prince.
Thank you for having me. I'm so honored to be here.
Thank you for having me. Honestly, it is a privilege and an honor to be on a podcast with you. This is the first podcast I've ever been on, and it's just been going great
Yeah,
ever since we started.
I'm having so much fun doing it. Like,
Yeah, I mean, when you got the good chemistry, it just flows. It really just flows.
yeah, so as you could tell, today we are missing two other members. Yeah,
Yeah, mini app.
yeah, they were busy. So it's just gonna be us two. So
The dynamic duo.
usually when you leave me and Pedro alone in the room, something catches on fire. So yeah, we'll see what happens at the end of this.
Yeah, right. Oh yeah, keep the first responders on speed dial. We might need them. But in all seriousness, getting down to brass tacks, cutting through the guff, we're going to be talking about something very near and dear to everyone's psyche, the meaning of life, of all things,
Yep,
proposed by the one and only Prince. Mentioned it to me like what, like 8 hours ago?
8 hours ago. I'm like, because we were talking. I texted you. I'm like, should we still do the episode if it's just us two? And you're like, if you want to. And I'm like, and then I looked at the topic list, and that's still a surprise. So we can't say what the topics are. I was just like, well, what are we both going to talk about?
Right.
And I'm like, well, what's one interesting topic that like anyone can have a debate on? And it's
Anybody.
the meaning of life.
Why not? The meaning of corn, as they say in Ohio. But to get right to it, meaning is a funny word, I think. To give something meaning, right? Or to find meaning in something. Now, when I look at another language, like when I look at another language written out, a lot of the times that has little to no meaning to me. Like maybe the only meaning that I can get out of it is that I can tell what language is being written, but I can't tell what is being said. You feel me? And something like a really hard math problem has inherent meaning, but it really doesn't flourish into its meaning until we like relate it to something in real life, like a word problem or something like that. You can just have numbers on a screen, but as soon as Billy has 5 apples, that expression, that equation really has like gaps in it. You know, it's like a soap bubble. It hints at meaning, but doesn't contain any meaning per se. What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, yeah, like you say, you could just throw numbers on the screen, but like you said, as long as Billy has 5 apples, like you've given that
Mm-hmm.
meaning right there. Like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Right. So when it comes down to like the meaning of being alive or the meaning of life, that's like a multi-pronged kind of question. You know, even just now we dissected only one word and barely. Now, is life awareness of your surroundings? Is life metabolizing food into energy? Well, what do you say life is?
I mean that's why we're having this conversation. Like,
Oh,
like, because everyone has like different opinions on like what is life, or like
right.
once again the meaning. Like some people, I think it's just maybe it's also how we were raised too. Because some people like think if I'm a good person, good things will happen to me. Uh, life
Right.
is just to grow up and be happy.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Is life just a box of chocolates?
yeah,
You know, you never know what you're gonna get. Even today, we didn't know what we were gonna get.
we
We just
s-
sprung this. We just sprung this on each other.
yeah we still don't know what we're
You
gonna get.
know. Now, when I think of something as being alive, like obviously like a rock, that's easy to be like a rock isn't alive. It doesn't really move around, it doesn't really interact with its environment. But there's bacteria on a rock, so it's like teeming with life, you know? Because I think a bacteria is alive,
Okay,
even though their existence is pretty rudimentary.
yeah,
Now, would I say that like the sun is alive? That's an interesting question because the sun is like has a metabolism if you think about it. It is turning nuclear energy into light and heat and cosmic rays and has a life cycle, will eventually die
that is true.
and was born at a point. Um,
Actually,
Now
never.
that draws into question those like the definition of to be born or to die, you know? What were you gonna say?
I was gonna say I never thought of about the sun like that
Yeah,
because like yeah, it
you
is
know?
it is technically alive and it's gonna
Right.
die, but it's I think it's like because I'm not seeing it as like a person or like an animal, you know,
Mhm. Right.
because bacteria is like you said they're also alive, but they're just I guess nothing to us.
Nothing is kind of a deep cut. Nothing is a little broad
No,
because there's bacteria in your gut
well yeah, that
that keep you alive,
I guess
you
nothing's
know?
not the right word. It's we just don't see them as like
Yeah.
like us, like humans.
I know what you mean.
Yeah,
Yeah, like bacteria don't get to vote.
yeah, yeah. Bacteria don't have a say. Yeah,
Bacteria don't get a driver's license. They don't go to work in the conventional sense. But, speaking of going to work, if you were to kill a canine that like a cop dog, if you were to kill a cop's dog, you would get charged with killing a cop as if you killed a person.
huh? I didn't know
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, that's the truth. And I don't know if that's because that, both the dog and the person, police officer, are property of the state, and because you damaged certain property of the state, you get a similar penalty. Not too sure about that one,
Yeah,
but I will say that that is interesting that like, great apes, some great apes can speak to us in sign language like Coco. Like some great apes can like type on typewriters. And so at where in the intelligence spectrum do you have to get to be allowed to interact with the society that you're fucking immersed in? Brown people had it bad for a while, probably still do in some places. Brown
yeah.
people, like they were like, oh yeah, a brown person is 3/5 of a person.
Jeez.
But
Yeah,
like still technically considered alive. So I think to answer the question that's in my lap right now, without going too far into the weeds, I will say that in my perspective, in my opinion, that life has no inherent meaning, but us as observers give it meaning. We perceive meaning as almost like an emotional currency, and finding something that's devoid of that emotional currency, or like, I guess a better word would be like not it, like that emotional currency is irrelevant to the processes of the cosmos, but we can still allot that currency to the situation. you know
yeah.
it That's why when I go outside and I hear like mourning doves, I'm always like, oh, the nostalgia bird. you
I
know
love the nostalgia
that
bird.
like the nostalgia bird hits.
Yeah, it gives comfort.
Yeah. And the nostalgia bird wouldn't be that without that without that meaning that I gave to it.
Yeah,
And it gives your experience texture. You know?
So
Have you ever seen the movie Mr. Nobody?
no, I haven't.
That's a good one. Mr. Nobody's a good one. It's long as fuck, and it's got Jared Leto in it. So take that with a grain of salt. But it's a great movie. It's a great movie, and not to ruin it or whatever. In the future, there's like immortality. There's pseudo immortality because of like advances in stem cell research or some bullshit like that. And like the an interviewer asks a guy who's like the last living mortal who's gonna die, the last person ever to die, because everyone else has like stem cell injections, but this guy didn't get them. And they're like, what was life like when everyone died? And he was like, we went to war, we went out dancing, we fell in love. It was like the finite nature of it gave it that meaning.
Yeah.
We always hear about like vampires living to be like 300, 400 years old. It's like, dude, that's why they're so cynical and so sociopathic. You know what I mean? They outlived all of their enemies basically, except for other vampires whom they hate. It's weird to have no community. It's weird to be like ostracized in that way where it's like this ain't like Twilight, dog. Like you can't just you can't just fall in love with a mortal. You can, but
Unless that mortal
there's
agrees to be a vampire, but
unless that mortal
yeah.
exactly agrees to be a vampire, it's it's like a finite it's like a finite interaction, but only for one party. The other party has infinite time.
Yeah.
They're undead already, you know. But yeah,
So I
just to
mean,
give it
at that
just to give it that.
wouldn't that also just be like if they're undead, they're not alive, so then they don't they still technically still have life?
Okay.
You see what I'm
Well, look at the word undead.
uh-huh.
So like not dead.
Fair
What
enough.
things are not
All right.
dead but
Yeah.
alive things? They did die.
They're just back.
They did exhaust their mortal life and then began a new immortal life.
So would their meaning of life be different then?
Had to be. Everyone's meaning of life is different, whether you're immortal or not. I'd say. I mean, just a proof is in the pudding. How about you tell me your short enough answer to the question proposed.
My short enough answer.
I tried to shorten mine up as best I could, but I went off on a tangent or two.
You know,
But please.
I'm fine. I love hearing you yap about this stuff. But my meaning of life, it's probably not gonna be as long as yours. We're just comparing meanings of life.
Yeah, right. Like, make sure you measure from the bottom.
Yeah.
We're comparing.
So my meaning is basically just to be happy, which is very vague. Like to be happy and like to be a good person. Because if I said just to be happy, it's like okay, maybe stealing and killing people is to be happy, but like that's not what I wanted to. I completely derailed that. That's awful. Oh God.
Yeah, not too easy, is it?
No, not these.
Yeah, no, but I see where you're coming from there. Like,
I
that's a
can't.
very honorable
I
path,
can't do
It's
these. I
just
can't do those long like explanations that you do that like actually make sense without me going into a giant circle.
sometimes the circle is the most stable form of logic. It isn't always the right one, but talking in circles happens to the best of us. I will say though, like I said earlier, that's an honorable path. They wrote that into the Declaration of Independence. You know what I mean? Pursuit of happiness. And to be a good person. You did mention that like sometimes the influences of society kind of like sneak up on you, and being a good person doesn't always take the same form as it did in the past. But
Yeah, and that's also like it's also another like thing that could be debated. Like, what is good?
hmm
Like,
what is good?
yeah,
Right, yeah, because if it, it's bad to kill your neighbor. You probably shouldn't kill your neighbor. But if your neighbor's like a pedo or something like that, ethically, ethically you should probably kill them. Morally, you have to really wrestle with the idea of taking a life.
yeah.
Because doesn't that make you a murderer? you know? But and since ethics is just like a knife to the ribs as like a form of ordering a society, things that would be ultimately ethical are not always like the most morally reprehensible.
That can go down another rabbit hole.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it really
It's
can.
it's a really
So
like
being
it's a really never ending rabbit hole. Really, like once you start debating stuff like
yeah,
this.
it's like a fractal kind of. So, how did you stumble across I know this sounds like kind of like a vague question to your vague answer, but how did you stumble across just like two things? Just be happy and be a good person. Did you try some other things first? Was that bestowed upon you by a teacher?
I guess yeah, like that was bestowed by my parents because
Yeah.
growing up, my parents taught me, do good in school, don't be bad, like don't steal from strangers, be polite to people,
Mhm.
all that stuff. So, and they want me to be, happy with my life. So I'm just gonna do things that make me happy. So
Mhm.
I guess I guess my parents are a big influence on like putting my meaning of life, I guess.
Yeah. No, that tracks because like a lot of the times, and I know this sounds weird, but like until you are introduced to some other higher power, your parents are like a god to you. They just like make food appear and keep you safe
Yeah,
and seem to know the answer to stuff.
and you're like they're like
So,
the first people you meet.
they are literally the first people you meet, hopefully.
Hopefully, yeah.
In addition to like a room of lab coats,
Right.
there's like a room of lab coats and your parents.
Yeah.
Hopefully,
Hopefully,
those are the people who are there.
not just in the bathtub.
Yeah, no, dead ass. I mean, still, your mom is like the first person you encounter.
Yeah.
That's just like can't help it. So I can definitely understand why they would be like a huge influence, and I got that same shit too.
Yeah.
You know, um, like like my dad taught me to be like really intelligent and diplomatic about stuff, like not just make rash decisions if I can help it. But then my mom is a bit of a hothead, so when it comes down to like my temper and stuff like that, I definitely get my temper from my mom.
Yeah. I get mine from my dad.
And yeah, so it's like when it's time to rub elbows, mine are sharp. You know what I mean? And
Because they do be crusty.
but as influences though, I feel like both of my parents are good people. Like they both used to be criminals, and I used to be a criminal. I think. I don't think I'm a criminal anymore. I try not to be. Um I do things that are illegal, but I wouldn't consider myself like someone doing things that are illegal just for the sake of doing them,
I
you
mean,
know?
I don't see it being criminal because you're not hurting anyone really. But then again,
Yeah.
that's also another that's another debate right there. Like,
Right. Yeah, 'cause like am I not hurting my family
yeah,
that root for me when I do things that are not right to do?
yeah,
But harsher punishments make better criminals, and having almost gone to prison, I try to keep my nose clean now. I will say that the meaning of life for me like fluctuates, you know? It fluctuates with like my age.
And
Have you ever felt
I
that?
feel like that's normal. Yeah,
Yeah.
I feel like because like some people maybe their meaning of life is to work really hard, study really hard, get that dream job,
Mhm.
and once they get
Right.
older, maybe they're like, oh, this isn't what it cracked up to be. Like then
Right.
yeah,
That what you just said really reminds me of an interview that Mike Tyson did. Um in modern times, not when he was younger. Um but I do want to reference about like when he was younger, like when he was in his early 20s. That dude was just like a killing machine. You know what I mean? He's just
yeah,
like a Tasmanian devil with gloves on. It's almost like thank God he has gloves on.
yeah.
You're like,
Gonna watch a massacre.
holy shit. Thank you. Thank you, Jesus, that this man has gloves on. And he did not just put his whole fist clean through that guy's jaw. Um, but his meaning of life at that time, it could be said to be world champion, world heavyweight champion. And then when he got a bunch of world heavyweight championships, he was interviewed later and, talking about they're looking at all his belts and golden gloves and shit like that on a table and he's like he grabs one of the belts and just like tosses it and like smirks and he's like this ain't shit.
Yeah,
This really ain't nothing to me. This is garbage. What's really important is spending time with my family,
yeah.
and making memories like with my grandkids and stuff like that. And I was like, "Holy crap." And this is a used to be a bloodthirsty individual.
Yeah, he did get a
And
little hungry in the ring.
yeah, he was hungry. He was nibbling on people's ears.
Yep.
He was so hungry. Dogs do that. Junkyard dogs nibble on ears. And we had a human version of that in organized combat.
Thank God it was organized combat.
Thank God it was organized combat. I'm glad he wasn't like the bodyguard to some like Congolese drug lord.
Yeah, I was gonna
You know
say
what I
just
mean?
just imagine him just out there,
Yeah, out there in the cut. Oh my gosh.
unstoppable.
Yeah, I I read a book this one time called what was it called? Like A Long Road Home or something like that. It was about like child soldiers in like Uganda or something like that. It's crazy. Crazy. They would like snort mixtures of drugs and gunpowder to make them invincible before combat.
Yeah,
Yeah. I couldn't imagine them sharing some of that. I think they called it brown brown. I couldn't imagine them sharing that brown brown with Mike Tyson. Yeah, nah.
it's curtains. Just give up.
Yeah, just give up, man. Just give straight up.
I don't
If
think.
I saw that on the other side of the battlefield, I'd just call my mom. I would put my gun down and call my mom. Like I'd get out the satellite phone and ring up old girl and be like, "Mom, you come pick me up." They got a really high Mike Tyson with a gun here.
I was gonna say like, even if he did surrender, I don't think he's going to stop.
No, nah, bro. He would eat your lungs. Mike Tyson's not supposed to be fucked with ever. There's people in this world that you can kind of fuck with sometimes. You can't really fuck with Mike Tyson, I don't
No,
think.
nope.
No. But just that shift, in his age and in his temperament, shifted that meaning for him. I feel like when I was younger, like when I was in college or something, finding a way to make like a bunch of money without leaving my house was a really influential factor behind me selling drugs.
Yeah,
It like that influence always manifests some way. And now with that, I was able to like travel around Northeast Ohio basically for free. Like my time was worth so much that I didn't have to worry about like gas or food or I knew so many people I didn't have to worry about like a place to stay, and
Yeah.
I had my own apartment too, so my own apartment with two roommates. So, split some bills three ways. As soon as you split bills three ways, it's over. You're making it hand over
Yeah.
fist. And but I lived so fast and I didn't put any of that money away. Um because I didn't have that like foresight. So it feels really strange to have walked that knife's edge, and I do kind of say this a lot sometimes, and it's not true, but I do say it a lot, and to have like a little bit like almost nothing to show for it, except for all of my stuff that I acquired during years and years of just like accumulating knickknacks and pieces of equipment for different kinds of creative endeavors. And I just think that being out of what could be considered the game gave my life new meaning.
Yeah.
That's something that I can say with honesty. And that's not me being like I couldn't put down the cup. I was addicted to the hustle. Like I wasn't, but that was my job. That was
Yeah.
like my
It's like,
my career was the black market
yeah,
for.
you're like I was good at it.
Yeah, you know what I mean? From when I was 18 until I was like 24ish, 23, 24ish, I was just flipping pack. What can I say? And that's a lot of money for like some punk ass. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I it shouldn't have went down like that. I should have been studying. I would have made it through college. You know?
Yeah. I mean, I feel like when we're young, we're just trying to like, live fast because like we think we're indestructible. Like we have
Yeah.
all the time in the world. We don't really have foresight like now,
Mhm.
which is also another like that plays onto our thing where like our meaning of life changes as we get older because
Right.
our time is, less supposedly, unless
Mhm.
we, just drop dead tomorrow.
Right, yeah. No, that's something weird because you really never know.
Yeah.
You really never know. Like
It's just something we don't think about.
it is. And it isn't something I really thought about. If I can get deep again, if we can just get even deeper into the sauce, it really
As we
isn't something that I thought about until dot 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 I got fucking hit by a car.
Oh, yeah.
So that's really what made me think like, "Oh my god, I could die.
Yeah.
I could die like whenever." My friend Robbie choked on a chicken sandwich. We were talking about that the other day.
Yeah.
He almost died. Like he like passed out while choking, and his girlfriend had to wife, sorry, his wife, my homie Ashley had to like call the paramedics, be coached on like how to give the Heimlich maneuver while he's like actively choking to death.
Yeah.
And that could happen to anybody. Them chicken sandwiches will sneak right up on you
Yep.
and run you for your laces. And yeah, so almost getting mashed up by an automobile while in a crosswalk gave me a new lease on life and thus new meaning.
Yeah, because, I mean, it's always like whenever it's like some like death, I guess. Like I don't know. Whenever I go to funerals, I'm like I get freaked out about like death because it's like
Hmm.
no living thing really wants to die. We all want
No.
to, yeah, we all want to live, but it's something we've already experienced before if you think about it.
Yeah, it's part of the game.
Yeah, like when we were born, like before we were born,
Hmm.
there was a void, and afterwards, well, I guess this is my belief because that's a whole nother tree we can shake. I think we will also go back to the void once our
Ooh,
time is done on Earth.
hell yeah.
Yeah. So
So
that just like
that's a fun one.
yeah.
I've always liked that. Like what what's on there's nothing on the VHS tape before the magnetic strip. Just like you said, you've already been dead before you were alive,
Yeah.
you know? Um I'm a big fan of multiverses,
I'm also a big fan
you
of that.
know? So I'm a big fan of multiverses. I think there's something to be said about when and if they interact with each other. You know, like how people say that we're living in a black hole. We're living inside of a black hole in another universe. Like that other universe had a black hole, and then inside of that is our universe because it's like a compressed singularity that causes quantum fluctuations that could replicate the conditions of the Big Bang and create a whole another universe inside of that little pocket of space.
Yeah.
So I'm a big fan of that. I'm a big fan of like, Russian nesting dolls of fucking philosophy. Or not even philosophy, astronomy, when it really comes down to it. And to know that, to know that there's at least some form of oblivion, you know,
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of rewarding. You know what I mean? It's like eventually the credits are going to roll. You don't just get to watch this movie forever. Um, and it may sneak up on you, but it's not. It's like an open secret. It's not something that you like. That you're like, oh my god, I die?
Yeah.
I thought everybody else dies. I'm not supposed to
I'm
die.
not. I am the
You know
main
what I
character.
mean? I'm the main character, right? Like I got plot armor. Like, what do you mean I die?
just
Like,
get
yeah,
just get
bro.
the Dragon Balls. Bring me back.
Yeah, wish me back on the Dragon
Yeah.
Balls. Simple as that. Just not the Black Star Dragon Balls. So it really comes down to like how you how you approach it. Like, do you approach it with grace? You know, do you? You got to be like brave about it. You got to be like brave about it. It's gonna be the worst tummy ache of your life.
Yeah, like it's gonna
You got to
happen.
be brave
Yeah.
about it.
Jeez, that's like, but but yeah, like that's why like once you experience somewhat near death, like that makes you reflect on your life and like think of everything you've done. And then whether you liked what you saw, that would also just change your meaning. Like
Yeah.
so like why is it only when that happens
Mhm.
that people think about their meaning? Like
Well, it's the stark reality of it. There's that like people be saying like ignorance is bliss and all that, but I just think like being faced with the stark reality of the inevitable turns your thoughts on your own mortality. I mean, I just visited my dad the other day at the cemetery, right?
yeah.
And I'm not too gangster to admit that I cried, of course. But he died when I was 15. I'm 30 now. So every day that goes by, I'm living I've been alive for longer than I knew him, you know?
Yeah.
So that feels weird. That feels like soon. Okay, my friend Kat, who you met the other day with the C,
Yeah.
Cat with a C,
Yeah.
with the short hair. I've known her for 10 years now. I think. Yeah, 10 years. So that means in 6 more years, I will have known this woman, Caitlin, longer than I've known my own father.
Jeez.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's another one. That's another one that like makes you really look in the mirror and be like, where am I putting my time? Where am I spending that emotional currency? You know?
Yeah. But yeah, but it's just once again like when it's only like these certain moments that we really just sit down and like
Mhm.
really think about it. I don't know if like I don't know if you just sit there one day and just randomly think like, oh, I just look back at my life and I need to be different. Like,
Yeah, I do that a lot. I do that a lot because I'm like, I'm pretty into meditating. Yeah, I fuck really heavily with meditating, but it doesn't always take like a cliche like kind of form to it. Like I'm not like sitting in full lotus using like a Tibetan singing bowl or anything like that, you know?
yeah,
That could go down. I mean, I don't know how to sit in full lotus. I don't think I have the hip displacement to do that. But
you can always try.
yeah, you gonna help me up? Like,
You're gonna
call
take
an
me to
ambulance.
you're gonna
Call
take
an
yeah.
ambulance.
You're gonna take me to the hospital.
Yeah, bro. Honestly, I'd probably like rip my gooch into thirds if I tried to go into full lotus
Probably.
without like practicing. You're, it's they say in like ancient texts and manuals that if you're able to put your foot flat against your chest, then you can sit in full lotus.
Huh.
If you can't put your foot flat against your chest, then don't even try. You'll hurt yourself. You have to sit in butterfly for years and years and years and years and years to open your hips up for you to be able to sit in full lotus.
I never knew that.
Yeah, and there is a half lotus position too, where only one leg is up
Oh yeah.
instead of both. And that's like a huge pain in the ass. But speaking of dem boys, them bald headed monks. Speaking of, I will say that the concept of yoga to hone the antenna of your subtle body, soul, mind's eye, whatever you want to call it, so that it can receive the frequency of the divine is a very, very, very interesting and rewarding concept.
Yeah.
And I love seeing those Christian white mom posts that are like, I want to do yoga for fitness. I don't want to worship false gods.
That
And it's like, girl, if you even read like a little bit of of what yoga is all about, you would see that it is not false. You know?
that's a whole nother argument too.
Truly, yeah, we touched on this before we hit record.
Yeah.
That you and I stand on, different sides of the fence when it comes to acknowledging the divine.
Yeah.
And that's not too bad. I think that that's good. I think that that's important because now we can pick each other's brains about it,
Yeah.
you know? So like were you raised with a religion and then stepped away from it? Because I
Yeah.
was.
My family was very Christian. Like at least when I was younger, we would go to like church on Sundays, and I would hate it. Like
Okay.
because you're a kid, you just want to sleep in. You don't want to wake up early
Yeah.
to go to some place.
On
Listen
your
to
day off,
yeah,
just to go to a lecture.
yeah, just to listen to some old guy.
Yap.
Yeah, for like an hour,
Right.
and then like great, my Sunday's gone. But yeah,
Yeah, you poor thing. 1 hour out of your entire Sunday.
as a kid,
Ruined
that
the
was
whole thing.
as a kid, that's like torture, man.
Yeah, no.
But yeah, we grew up.
It took me a while to understand what we were on about
Yeah,
at church too.
yeah, but yeah, like I guess once I in my teen years slash early adult years, I really just slowly started to question like my belief. Like, do we go to some heaven afterwards, or
Mm-hmm.
is there a hell?
Ooh, spicy.
Yeah, and
Yeah, the questioning is really important. I want to hear more about that.
yeah, and I just the more I thought about it, it's like because I look at the whole world and I was just like, okay, there's kids with cancer, there's disease, there's wars, like
Right.
you know how they're supposed to we're all supposed to be good, but there's so much like bad and or evil
Right.
and death, and that's when I started questioning like, shouldn't God be not letting this happen? Like,
Intervening. Yeah.
yeah,
Right.
like why make so many people suffer?
Mm-hmm.
Like, like you're like the Almighty God. Like you're supposed to be able to
Right.
stop this.
Right.
And
That's that. Nah. Keep yapping, because I gotta look up this quote.
yeah,
It's like,
but yeah, it's just it's like I was like, what kind of God would allow his followers or his children, because we're all children of God. Like why would he make us suffer for us to still worship him? And
yeah. So you're really erring on the side of this quote right here. Either God can do nothing to stop catastrophes like this, or he doesn't care to, or he doesn't exist. God is either impotent, evil, or imaginary. Right?
yeah,
That's
exactly.
like that exactly. Right. See, that's a fun one. That's a fun one because it's like, people are like, oh, well, the grand design of the universe is like a watch, and there needs to be a watchmaker, you know?
Yeah,
And bestowing all of these powers onto God gives him like this weight, gives him like this like, come on, man, do something about this. How can God help both sides of a war? Like they pray to the same God. you know? And so where then is uh God's behavior? Is it is it evil? Is God like, yes, look at all this war and destruction in my name? Like a sociopath or something like that?
might be.
Or imaginary, being used to explain things in the world before we knew better, like where does rain come from?
Yep.
How are kids made? You know what I mean? The birds and the bees
Yeah.
were explained by the angels and the demons.
Or there could be, I don't know if this is a good one, but it was like, has God abandoned us?
Has God abandoned us? Whoa,
Yeah.
that's a big one. So, like, not to get too far into the weeds, but
I think we're
I'm a big
way
fan.
past that.
Yeah, we're in the weeds right
Yeah.
now. We're getting bit at by mosquitoes and we're getting sliced at by sawgrass. We
Yep.
are in the weeds. But to stay in the weeds, I like Warhammer, specifically Warhammer 40K, which is the year 40,000 and some of the human enterprise,
Mhm.
basically. There's creatures in Warhammer 40K called orcs. Not too dissimilar from orcs in other fantasy um, lexicons. These orcs have these two gods that are called, I'm pretty sure, Mork and Orc. I'm pretty sure. Um, if I'm wrong, let them roast me in the comments. I'm all for the Imperium, so I really don't give a shit about other people's gods in Warhammer 40K. We burn that shit before it lays eggs. we go, yeah. The Imperium's all about xenophobia and it's terrible. But they have these gods where it's like the more orcs believe in a certain thing, the more likely it is to be true. and to exist. So, for example, orc spaceships have been captured, and as soon as all the orcs on the spaceship are dead, the spaceship stops working. Because there's no orcs there to believe that the spaceship works, and then it just becomes a bunch of junk all welded together. You know?
Yeah.
There's also been times where orcs can like run into battle with nothing in their hands and just use finger guns to shoot. You know, that's like a common in joke. Orcs paint their vehicles certain colors to give them certain attributes. Red is fast. Anything painted red goes faster than anything that isn't painted red. Little shit like that.
That's what they believe.
Now, that's what they believe. Now, to bring the point home, still in the weeds, I like when you said, has God abandoned us?
Yeah.
Has God been fractured into all of us? So that the more fractured we are, the weaker God is.
Huh.
That's the next question on the charcuterie board right now.
Yeah, jeez. Huh. Really bring out
You
the
know,
big
because
guns.
back in the day when the religion was the politics, you know what I mean? It was like in Roman times and old Catholic times and stuff like that. The religion was the politics, and it still is like that sometimes. I mean, fuck it. Galileo wasn't pardoned until 19 something by the Vatican. They were still like salty about him proving the earth was round for a while. Now, not to get all flat earthy, but the fracturing of the divine into us. We're at the highest population of the earth that we've ever had, and it just keeps growing. And stuff like yoga, like I said earlier, polishes that antenna, hones it in to be able to understand and to be able to pick up the frequencies of the divine. Do you think we have strayed from the path too far and have lost that meaning? And because we've lost that meaning, we've lost that power to see and realize miracles?
Probably.
Probably is a good answer.
Yeah.
I'd say. I'd say probably is the best answer I could give either. You know?
I
And
I was just gonna say real quick, like I don't really ever see the day like people will see each other as equals. I think, cause I mean I believe that I believe in evolution. So you know
fair.
how
Same.
yeah, you know how animals are competitive. We
Hmm.
still have that animal instinct at least. Like we are just
Yeah.
competitive creatures.
Competing over resources.
Yeah,
But we have so many resources now that we have to like invent a game to play. That's why we have like the stock market and shit, you know?
yeah. And it's like it's not only we're competing for resources, but it's also like I think we're also like egotistical creatures. Like we'll always think
Yeah.
like, "Hey, I'm better than that person," or
Right.
yeah, there's never gonna be like an equal view. Like we're all pretty can be selfish creatures.
I'd say. I'd say so, yeah. I mean, I'm not too gangster to admit that I'm selfish and egotistical.
But yeah, same.
And when my ego gets bruised, I get butt hurt,
Yeah,
you know? Never too gangster to admit that. It's like it's honorable, you know, to admit when stuff like irks you or like bends you out of shape. Even if it's stuff, especially if it's stuff you can't control, you know?
yeah,
And I think that's another like interesting argument for the divine is like we just want to be able to control stuff, you know? To control the method and organization of our lives. I mean, Not to air my own shit out, but that's kind of what got me into the occult was like searching for control.
Yeah.
I'm really into chess, and the fun thing to me about chess is making someone move in a way that I want them to. Make that move because I'm telling you to, because it's part of my plan. You're
Yeah.
making that move because you think you're being defensive about it, but I'm actually shrinking your forces into like a little area so I can pick them off easy. Or I'm splitting your attention between two altercations on the chessboard. I like that control.
That's what I do like about chess too. Like I just like to think that I'm reading my opponent, like, or analyzing, like
Yeah.
learning, like what they're gonna be doing
Right.
next.
Mm-hmm. And a lot of the times in life, we don't have that. So we press this new carcass on top of it. We're like, hey, no, this new chassis. We're like, this is a game that I'm playing. I'm gonna make up some rules for myself, and I'm gonna see it through to the end, my boy.
Yeah.
I sent my friend Kat with a C one of these memes out here, and it said like, "Uh-oh, I broke one of the rules that I made up for myself." And it's this guy laying distraught in the snow. And it's like so true because we do make up these rules for ourselves. Everything is just made up. We made it up,
Yeah.
you know? And just like the orcs, we made it up and it controls our reality in some way.
Yeah. I think as you know, a creature as creatures of us, like we're like I guess the most intelligent creature. At least some of us can be intelligent.
He said some of us could be the most intelligent creature on the planet, but not all of
Yeah.
us. I've driven on I-90 at 5 p.m. Not
Yeah.
all of us are the most intelligent creature.
Exactly. Uh, but it's just like yeah, like we I think we overcomplicate everything. Like we
Yeah.
give everything meaning.
Mhm.
Like
Mhm.
and to go back once again onto the topic,
Mhm.
there might just not be a meaning to life.
Yeah, I really don't think there is.
There really is no like right or wrong answer.
Inherent.
Yeah.
No inherent meaning.
Yeah.
Not to be all nihilistic about it, but like no inherent meaning except for the meaning that you give it. The rules that you apply.
Yeah. So it's like once again it ties into your chest. It's like we like like our rules like that we make for
Mhm.
ourselves. Like
Yep.
we,
Yeah, I mean, one of the rules that I make for myself in chess is like try to get a bishop pair. Try to get two bishops together, out and developed. And that's because I learned a long time ago that the bishop pair is real strong. Mainly because I was against it a bunch of times and got shit on because I didn't realize what I was up against. I didn't realize what I was up against when someone castles or when someone brings a knight out. I didn't realize the rules yet.
yeah.
My dad taught me how to play chess. I never beat him. Played him a bunch of times. Never beat really anybody in my family. People outside of my family, though, I can clean somebody up in chess if I'm really paying hard attention. Cause it's like I kind of understand the rules now. I'm not like a savant. I'm not like a prodigy in chess, but better than someone who doesn't practice and has never played. Which it really isn't saying much. Not trying to like toot horns or anything like that.
Yeah.
Chess is something that I try not to brag about because it's so easy to lose at.
It really is.
You know, and to bring the point home again, just to put another nail in this coffin, life is really easy to lose at too.
Yeah.
You know, it's really easy to get into debt or to die or like to get your heart broken. You know,
Yeah.
it's the hard stuff that's worth doing. And when people are like, "Oh, it's the little things," but them little things be the biggest things. You know, I feel like I've said that on a different episode, but like the little stuff in life is actually the big shit. You know, and it grows on you like a mold, but it helps you like the bacteria in your stomach.
Yeah, it's just
Keeps you alive.
it's never ending.
Never. Never ending, and I'm happy for it. You know, I'm
Yeah,
happy for like the constant onslaught of life.
yeah, I love talking and discussing, like meeting new people and seeing their perspective of
Hmm.
it. It's never ending.
Right. And just to meet you on the same boat, so that way we're both paddling in the same direction.
Yeah,
I too grew up in a pretty religious household. It was Catholic, and there's like a bunch of made up rules in Catholicism. And when I got older, when I got into my like head ass adolescent phase, just like you,
yeah,
I ditched it. You know, I felt like it didn't have any correspondence to the life that I was living. And I kind of felt ostracized from my family because of it, you know, because they were all still super heavy into the cloth.
yeah.
And actually, like, this may sound weird, but during that time, I almost went to prison. I had nothing left, man. I was about to go to the concrete hotel. You
Jeez.
know, I was gonna have to shave my head so that they didn't tie me to my bunk and make an example out of me
Yeah.
because I had such long hair. I had hair almost down to my knees.
Damn.
And yeah, right. So what really came to pass was that I ended up praying about it. I ended up being like, man, fucking God, divine, whatever, bro, get me out of this. And and you know, it's always a bargain. It's always a bargain. It's always
Yeah.
like, please get me out of this. Please get me off of this bathroom floor butt naked shivering. And I will XYZ,
Yep.
right?
Always bargaining.
Always bargaining. Such a bargainer. Um but yeah, the negotiator came out of me, and lo and behold, my fine lawyer got me out of it. And having that lawyer and getting out of it just by the skin of my teeth. Mind you, I was on probation and I was still smoking weed. I was just asking for it. My levels, my THC levels in my piss were not going down to zero. They stood me in front of the judge. They had the bailiff stand behind me with his fucking silver bracelets out. I'm telling you, dude, I was so close. It was about to be over for me.
Jeez.
And that put the fire up my ass. It put the fire up my ass to be a better person, to step away from the game because it's not worth my freedom. Somebody else's fun night out is not worth my freedom, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah, it's really
And
not.
um I'd like to say that the divine really came through for me that day. You know, there's something in it cuz I know my mom was praying for me too, and my grandma, and like it's like the spirit bomb, you know what I mean? Like, give
Give
me
me
a
your
little bit of your
energy.
energy, you know? And we hit the judicial system in Cuyahoga County with a spirit bomb, and it got me out of it. And like I said, I'm not too gangster to admit that I believe that was a deciding factor of my continued freedom. Now, it was just close call after close call after close call. When I was arrested, I got arrested for twice the bulk legal limit of mushrooms.
Damn.
Also in my car, besides like the 2.25 ounces, also in my car was 56 hits of acid. The cops found the mushrooms and they took me to jail and they booked me. If they would have looked any harder, I would still be in prison.
Yeah.
Just close call after close call after close call. Shit like that doesn't make you feel invincible. It makes you feel very vincible. It makes you feel like very touchable. Very like when people with guns are making you squat and lift your balls and cough, and it's such a dehumanizing experience. And I've been to like holding cells or whatever, but I've never been to prison. Thank God. And I'm not too gangster to admit that I said that on purpose. You know, it's it's just these rules that I made up for myself that I play by.
Yeah.
You know, and sometimes without my direct control, but from my personal influence, those rules reward me when I follow them. And call it schizo brain. Dr. Oatmeal's just finding patterns in the world where they don't exist, but you can't tell me that it was just five coincidences all in a row. You really can't tell me that.
You
You
either
know?
you either take the red pill or the blue pill.
Yeah, seriously. And yeah, I red pilled. I'm gonna be canceled now because I said that. But I do like The Matrix. I
Yeah.
fuck super heavily with The Matrix. I haven't seen the fourth one yet, but I fuck real heavy with The Matrix. Um, The Matrix has a big ass question about the meaning of life too. Like,
It's never ending, man.
yeah, The Matrix really asks. It's like, would you rather live a life in a synthetic delusion or live a very rugged life in the technically real world? And then that one schemy ass dude, I forget his name, but he's like eating that holographic steak, looking like plankton, eating that holographic meatloaf. Like, dog,
I've never
you
seen.
can't sit there and eat at that restaurant and be like, nom, 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 and you're part of the freedom fighters. Corny, mad corny. You've never seen The Matrix?
I've never seen The Matrix.
None of them?
None of them.
Damn.
I'll do.
Yeah,
I'll do my homework.
yeah. The Matrix is fire. Matrix is a
So I've heard.
great movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um. But yeah, dude, the
This.
meaning of corn.
Yeah. This was a. This was an episode.
Yeah. Oh my God, we're already at an hour.
Yeah, we
Jesus, Mary
derailed
and
so
Joseph.
much.
It was worth it though. It's definitely worth it.
I wonder. I wonder if this will be uploaded.
Yeah, this was supposed to be a little mini episode.
Yeah, it's not.
This is a full episode. That's crazy.
Yeah, we just got lost in the sauce, you know.
Lost in the sauce. How to bool out of control without getting lost in the sauce. If you learn anything from me, you will learn that. But yeah, I guess closing statements. Like I said before, life, the meaning of life is whatever you give it, bro.
Yeah,
Just sit down and draw a silly picture of a dog and put it up on your fridge and take pictures of your friends while they're laughing. Just give life meaning and it'll pay you back dividends.
yeah. Just do what makes you happy and be a good person. You know, help others, and yeah, volunteer, donate.
Yeah, volunteer, donate, tip,
Yeah, we all
pay
gotta
it
help each
forward.
other. Yeah, we all gotta help each other out.
Yeah, raise the karmic deficit. We need something like that these days. All right, GG no Riri. That
Yeah.
was a great episode.
All right, make sure to like, follow, share this, and yeah, this was an episode.